Kyle here from All Media Reviews, here to do at least as brief of a review as I can. I never make brief, short reviews though, but got a bottle of this stuff called Hint. It's not exactly cheap, but it's like sort of slightly flavored water, but you can't really, it doesn't taste overwhelmingly, but this is the watermelon flavor. I'm going to go get more of this at Costco, I think. But as an alternative to, it doesn't have any sugar, of course. It's not carbonated, so hint. But I can't drink it all the time, unfortunately, just because of how pricey it is. I mean, if I can get more of it at Costco. And I like to mix things up, of course. On the non-sugar based soft drink, non-juice. I mean, I can't even have juice, unfortunately. I can have like little amounts of it when the blood sugar's lower. So, but anyway, it's not babbling on. Like a long-awaited review of this movie, The Greatest Hits, which was on, I think it's on Hulu to stream. Pretty sure, yeah, according to IMDb. So, it came out, I want to say maybe May. I forget where I saw it. I don't know if it was one of those things where I saw like an ad on Instagram or YouTube for it, or I might have, when did it come out? I mean, I don't typically announce the dates of releases, but I'm curious. It was sometime this spring it hit Hulu, I'm pretty sure. It stars Lucy Boynton, who I know best for being in Sing Street. She's like the older woman who kind of shows an interest, befriends the guy, the main character who's a musician, set in the like early 80s, but she also was in, I want to say, yeah, she was in Bohemian Rhapsody. She plays the love interest to Freddie Mercury, at the point that he was still interested in women at that point in the, like, I want to say late 70s, may have been mid 70s, I forget. I remember parts of that movie well, other parts, I mean, I want to say I wish I remembered her better, but anyway. And she's been in some other stuff too. She's a good actress. Although as a lead isn't necessarily what I've necessarily thought of her, but I thought she was good in this movie. The movie, talk about the premise of the movie itself. The tagline on IMDb, and I've come to learn that a lot of the taglines are never that accurate. A love story centering on the connection between music and memory and how they transport us, sometimes literally. I was going to look up, maybe they had, I think they'd have the, I need to get a Letterboxd account, because that's like sort of the equivalent of, I use my movie ratings mostly on Rate Your Music. I mean, I used to use IMDb, but, yeah, it was, okay, so it was March 14th. I didn't realize it was that long ago, but, I don't know if it hit the festival circuit, maybe it was at Sundance, or maybe even last year, but... So, the premise, okay, so it also stars Justin H. Min, who I've seen... I mean, the thing I saw him most, the movie Shortcomings, that was the first thing I remember seeing, but I thought I had actually seen him in something else. He was in some movie called After Yang, but... He's in this. He plays one of the sort of love interests, and then the other love interest is a gentleman by the name of David Corenswet. Interesting name. He plays Max. Justin Min plays David Park, but he plays Max. And he looks familiar too, although he kind of looks like a little bit like with the beard and everything like that in this picture. Maybe not so much in the movie, like Donald Trump Jr., and he's in a movie called The Politician. Interesting. Lady in the Lake. I don't know. He's been in some stuff, so. But I mean, more recent stuff, of course. The other, Nelly Furtado makes a cameo in here, but the other kind of real notable, there's two notable other characters. There's this gentleman named Austin Crute, who plays Morris Martin, who's like he's the best friend of Lucy, who plays Harriet. I didn't even mention that, Harriet. He's the best friend, sort of consultation, but he's also a DJ. And then Retta, played by Retta, I've seen her and stuff too, plays Dr. Evelyn Bartlett. So I'll talk about the premise in just a minute, but she plays basically the moderator, organizer, what's the word? Yeah, the person who kind of organizes a grief counseling group that Harriet goes to, and then David, also Justin Min's character, ends up going to. But that's sort of a secondary premise of the plot. But she's a black, African American actress that I swear she was in Good Girls. But she looks really familiar. Like I remember, like I thought I looked her up when I first was gonna see the movie, or what? Because I watched this movie in segments over many weeks. Unfortunately, I remember looking up the cast, and I was like, yeah, I've seen her in other stuff. But Key and Peele, I want to say, well, anyway. So the premise is, I've gone on for like 8 minutes here. Harriet's character, she meets this guy. Well, you meet her 2 years after she meets this guy, but he ends up getting in a car crash with her. He's driving, and they get in a car crash, and he ends up dying. This guy, the boyfriend Max, and that's what she's going to the grief counseling, of course, and what happens is that she's going through therapy, but her and this guy, she met him at this festival that you see flashbacks from, or you see her go back. That's the thing is, so she doesn't die in the car crash, but she's in a coma for a week, we find out, and she ends up the music that they connected on, a lot of their favorite songs. It's called The Greatest Hits. It could have been called Our Greatest Hits, but ends up triggering, after she comes out of the coma, basically her going into the past. She's not asleep, really. She's like basically goes back into a coma, or she's knocked out, or she faints, or she passes out, per se, and then her consciousness is basically in the past, reliving basically what from her memory. These experiences, including the point that she meets him with that song. She's only in the past, in those past experiences for the duration of the song. But she's been, for many years, it's for a couple of years now. It's interesting. Yeah, she has like a wall of a timeline. But she's trying to identify what song she can go back, and she's trying to end this process, this condition of hers. And so you end up seeing her wearing headphones to avoid having songs that she would send her into these episodes in the past from her memory, because that the songs trigger that. A little bit like, it reminds me a little bit of the TV series Zoe's Extraordinary. Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist. That, and a little bit like Frequency, based on where the plot goes. The movie Frequency with Billy Crudup and Dennis Quaid, I think it was. Anyway, so what her goal is at some point is like, how can she stop this, and maybe to stop these sort of memory transfers, past experience, being brought back to the end, past, subconscious experiences. She needs to figure out how to do that, and she thinks maybe she can save her boyfriend Max, that will end it. But she's trying to figure out a way to save him. She's had the experience multiple times of being in the car with him again before it, like when the song starts, and she remembers hearing the song then, and then trying to get him to not drive the car where he's going to avoid the crash and dying and everything. So then she ends up meeting Justin Min's character David at the grief group. And they kind of stumble on each other to talk, and they end up going to a record store. And that's the thing is, I didn't point out, is that her interest in music, she's very into music, very into vinyl included. She was pursuing music, we find out as the movie goes on, to be like a producer. Maybe even a musician herself, but a producer. But so she goes to a record store where her friend is DJing this, Morris, her friend Morris, Austin Crute. And David shows up there. I forget whether he was gonna meet her there. I think maybe she told him about it. I can't remember the exact details because I watched that part a few weeks ago. But so they have this. See, it's almost like something out of like High Fidelity. Well, High Fidelity, you could see a little bit of the comparisons with music and the theme and stuff like that. But Free Enterprise, where you have the guy and the girl, a woman and a man wanting the same. In this case, it's a record. It was a Roxy Music record. It was in Free Enterprise. It was a comic book, of course. So they decide to like sort of share custody of it. It was an interesting premise, but then they end up meeting for. So there's as a romantic pursuit. It's been 2 years since this accident stuff. So it's like, well, is it time to move on? The 2-year anniversary was kind of a significant thing. Then you get some more background about David's character, why he's at the grief counseling. His parents both died. That was kind of just plot device per se. I mean, he had to be there, so he had to find a way to interact and encounter her. We do later find out, though, that she has a memory of her and her boyfriend, Max, going to what was his parents' store that him and his sister are, in the present time, are actually running. Yeah, he... So they actually ended up knowing each other. They didn't remember it. I don't know if she'd blocked it out. But that leads to sort of how she figures out how to fix things. So, they do connect. The two of them, while he finds out about her experience, and she's like making this wall, sort of like something out of Numbers or one of the CBS procedural dramas, where it's a wall of timeline of all these songs and when they happen and trying to figure out. He's like, well, so you're kind of experiencing living in the past for your dead boyfriend, and it's like you want to go back and remember that, or you miss the times you were with him. I mean, there's something to be said about that. There's reason if you were to lose someone, even for not losing. I've had this experience, especially during the pandemic periods, of like wanting to like go in the past. That whole desire to like go back to a simpler time with things when things were different, better in some ways. But yeah, he didn't exactly. He said it that way, and I don't know if that really was the best thing to say. But the two of them ultimately do connect, and I don't want to say they fall in love, but they're enjoying spending time together. The grief counseling and the loss of a loved one is sort of secondary. It's just a device to sort of have them connect. But I mean, this is a spoiler, of course. This is a review, and this movie's been out for 6 months, so it's not a big deal. And again, if you have Hulu, you can see it. The way they twisted it, that she kind of fixes things, is that kind of like the Deep Space Nine episode. There's one Deep Space Nine episode where they go to this planet, and they end up doing farming and meeting this civilization that is new there, but they're helping them out. And then they end up going back up to, I think it is the Defiant, the Starfleet people, Cisco people from Deep Space Nine. Then they go down and they realize that time is going by at like 25 times. Anyway, about 10, 20 years pass. So, but they realize that a bunch of people are going to die if they continue to do this. So, it was a little bit like that, where they couldn't know them, but they can know them in their mind, but the people that are on the planet will not exist anymore. What has to happen is Harriet's relationship and her experience with Max, her dead ex-boyfriend, and even David kind of has to cease to exist in the current timeline, at least from her perspective. So what happens is she ends up meeting him at that festival with her DJ friend Morris, who happens to be gay. That's not a really surprising thing, but I like him. I think it was one of the best parts of the movie. A lot of his pop culture lines, like Luther Vandross, and they had a thing about they talked about Steely Dan. I love all the music pop culture discussions, little name dropping of music references, of course, which I typically do in movies when they have them. But instead of basically they end up running to each other we're seeing each other at this festival or at this concert. I don't know if it's a festival, it's a concert. And the first time when we see that, when the song triggers, he they end up, when he says, "Well, I'm future girl. I know we're gonna be together," and everything like that. The second time to fix things, he's like, "No, I'd love to, have a hit with you." They smoke weed or whatever, and I'm not gonna, though. Unfortunately, I can't. I don't know if she put it that way. It's like, but enjoy whatever you're gonna have. And he looks back and it's looked at it's like, and I think she even says like, "I love you," but and he's kind of bewildered by her response, but as you find out later, and then of course the whole timeline gets fixed, and where we see her, that the regular primary initial timeline that we see, I assume still exists in some fashion. It's one of those multiple timeline things, like in Back to the Future 2 rather. But in her timeline, for her experience, I guess, it's not her sort of just memories. She's going forward from that point to 2 years after her boyfriend initially died. You see it, whatever it is, I don't know how much past the present time, or at the present time. I mean, she still knows, obviously, her friend Morris. She doesn't know David. She never goes to the grief counseling. And she doesn't know... But you see her, like, pass Max in, like, a bookstore. But I assume she's actually, like, working as a producer. Then you see Nelly Furtado make a cameo. She's mixing and, engineering and mixing Nelly Furtado's album and all this stuff. And then you actually end up seeing her and, David, like, at the same... I think it's a concert at the very end. But they don't know each other, but they kind of... It's one of those things where he knows before that whole process where she's going to end things with her boyfriend that things might not... Her memory of him is going to go away. It's like, well, we'll remember this now. Kind of reminded me of Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind when you're erasing that relationship. But this was sort of done for the good, but there's still... inherently, that memory is still there. There's also another story, I want to say... Star Trek, or there's some sci-fi episode where there's someone's trying to erase them, but ultimately, if you love someone, you can't erase that. But so anyway, that's a lot of words about this film that it's not been reviewed super favorably. I think it was good. The music element, of course, the one reason why I like it, and the vinyl part of it. Even some of the soundtrack, they do karaoke to "I'm Not in Love" from 10cc. I mean, it doesn't have a ton of big name songs. It has that song. It has something from Roxy Music. Oh, that's right. You see them at the end at a Roxy Music concert. I don't know who's in. They got in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, of course, but not with Brian Eno. And I don't know if the main singer of Roxy Music was with them. If it actually was, I mean, it said Roxy Music. I want to believe it was. It's gonna bug me. But yeah, I mean, it's called, The Greatest Hits is good. I think the premise is good. I think the actual story was what I think it could have been done a little bit better. I thought it was good, but I think the idea was better than the actual result. But it's another one of those sort of mid-level movies, unfortunately. I haven't found a lot of great movies. Brian Ferry, there's a guy I was trying to think. I don't know if Brian Ferry was on stage. He'd be in the credits, I would think. Unless, I don't know if he's currently with Roxy Music. I know they got in the Rock Hall, and actually technically a current band still. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad I saw it. I would put it in the same category as, she's been in Sing Street, these music-themed movies, although I don't know if it's quite as good as Sing Street or, of course, Once was the other one that followed up with Mark Ruffalo, and there's been a bunch of them, and then the one at the record store with not Nick Kroll, the guy from Parks and Rec, Nick Offerman. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad. My wife, I don't think liked, and she only watched half of it with me. I don't think she liked it as much. She was kind of downplaying, sort of. Well, they don't even have that much. The music's not that great in it. It's I don't know. And Justin Min, of course, where he was the lead in that movie. where he in that not love triangle, but he has the gay friend in the other movie Shortcomings that I did the review earlier this year. I wouldn't say I liked it quite as much as Shortcomings, but he is definitely an actor to watch because I mean he's been in 2 movies. I've liked him in both for the most part, but I don't know. It's like just happens to be Asian American or whatever. But so anyway, that's my review of the greatest hits. I'd like to do more movie reviews, and I mean the current movies. I haven't seen the what's it called, the Wolverine and a Deadpool. That I've been meaning to watch, but I'm going to wait until that becomes less crowded in a few weeks when we have some time. But yeah, but thank you for watching. R.I.P. by the way to both Jack Russell, the singer from Great White, who sang on Portnoy. Mike Portnoy posted on Instagram the Rush tribute and the Analog Kid cover they did on the Working Man album, and then Greg Kihn of the Greg Kihn Band, who I think I'm gonna listen. I listened to some like a live performance of that this gentleman Rick, who has uploaded a bunch of Kevin Gilbert videos, live stuff, and a lot of other stuff. But he's uploaded many Greg Kihn Band performances from the Bay Area. And I think he was 75. I guess he had Alzheimer's, which is sad, and he was a DJ on radio besides being a musician. Later, he was a DJ on radio, but he had the song Jeopardy, which I always think the Weird Al I Lost on Jeopardy more than that song that's a parody of. And then Breakup Song, which they don't write the line that they don't write them like that anymore or whatever. But I think he has a lot of music that I might like, a little bit like Chris de Burgh. Like where his hits, he got known for the hits, but there was more music or Joe Jackson even, to uncover. And so that album with the Breakup Song has a bunch of songs that were on the live show. I think it was from Chicago I was watching. He reminds me of Eddie Money though. He's about the same age probably as Eddie Money. Eddie Money might have been a little bit older, but not much. But he was around. He's a contemporary. He's from Northern California. Kevin Gilbert might have known him too, because John Cunaberti chimed in about how the death of Greg Kihn was really hard to just realize. So, obviously the Kevin Gilbert connection with John, and they had a couple others. Also, Joe Satriani played in his band, and Greg Kihn may have wrote some music for Joe, or I'm not sure exactly, but in the mid-'80s, like it was right before the Silver Surfer record, that he was in that show that I was watching. It was like from '85, so... it's not that, I know it's called the album that has the Silver Surfer on the cover, but... that was before Satriani got to be massively famous as a guitar god or whatever. It was just about before that, but Greg Kihn worked with him. So, but yeah, rest in peace, Greg Kihn. It's sad that it takes someone passing away, including Kevin or Jeff Buckley, to discover their music more in depth. I already know those 2 songs they frequently play on the we hear on the American Top 40. The Casey Kasem replays on the weekends. Both those songs end up showing up, but he's an artist that had several records, and not that he was huge, but he had a little bit of success in the pop world, power pop world, that I probably could like more of his music, just like Eddie Money. So, but thank you for watching again, and we'll see you next time.